CSPN, but I'm also the chief exec not of CSPN. That's Lee Mason, for those that know Lee. But I do run the Greater Manchester Sport Partnership, which is Greater Sport. So I'm going to leave that there because I'll kick it off otherwise. I think, thank you, Richard, for that. And for me, great opportunity to come to talk with colleagues today. And I'll talk a little bit about Kent Sports Partnership and the network, but also just reflect a little bit more on some personal experiences that we've been working with as a CSP in Greater Manchester. But as the network, we've got Chris from Northampton here, for those that don't know, and Sadie, so we have another 2 CSP directors with us. Sadie's from Sussex. And, you know, throughout the day, it would be great to have some ongoing dialogue with some of the other speakers and some of the people here. So for me, I approach this thinking that there's a couple of absolute givens in setting the scene here and talking about, you know, the way forward and what we're doing. An absolute given that actually the scene's been set, hasn't it? You talked about it, Richard. It's there. And we're very privileged to even be here today, I think, thinking about what we can do after a fantastic year last year. And the other thing which immediately, my conversation with Jeff, who I've known for many years, immediately this morning focused on the fact that nobody's going to inspire this generation, nobody's going to really drive this legacy on their own. And what we have now is a different landscape, it's a changing landscape. There are new people, new providers, new types of organisations, and the challenge is to find ways to bring those people together. And quite often that's about developing common language, isn't it, and currency. So I will talk in a general sense and try, if I can, to focus on young people, children and young people where I can. But there are, I think, some real issues that we need to be aware of and that we need to work our way through. And in that sense, I'm hugely optimistic, by the way. I don't start any of these things without thinking this is the time to be doing what we're doing. We said that 12 months ago. But actually, we've been given such a fantastic opportunity. But I do want to talk about a few challenges, because I think there are some challenges as we go through this that we need to address and we need to think about. I want to talk about the importance of absolutely nailing the impact of whatever we do, whatever you do, whatever the combined work of networks do, and how we use different languages or different sets of words, and we communicate in different ways. And then I really also want to illustrate, I hope, something that I'm really quite excited about in terms of some of the work that we're doing, which I know wouldn't have happened 12 months ago. The momentum was not there. And even though we've got a lot of problems, we've got a lot of change, we've got a lot of issues, there's some fantastically exciting ways in which we can all keep on this wave from last year. And it's not going to last forever, but we can still do it. So those are the things that I want to talk about. And in terms of the challenges, the first one, and I personally feel I can't overestimate how important I think this is for us all. It's nearly easy to say, isn't it? Do you really know what's going on in a world that is changing so rapidly? And if you don't know what is going on, how do you know what you're doing, and how do you know what you're doing will fit, and how do you know how other people are working? And I really put this as a first because I think, and like us all, you get to a level where you think, yeah, I'm fairly comfortable. I understand, I think, where people are going. I think I understand something around Richard's environment, local authorities, health. But then I start talking to senior colleagues, and actually, I'm here and they're up there in terms of where they are and their thinking. So I think one of our challenges is absolutely to spend a huge amount of time, and don't miss the opportunity to get the intelligence that you need from the people working in your network. And I know in our board meetings now in Greater Sport, we constantly, we have half of the meeting, it's an hour and a half every time, about do we understand the landscape? And we have high-level input from local authority, high-level input from health, and high-level input from NGB. And that's a debate that we continue to have. We have a board meeting on Friday. We'll spend an hour and a half thinking, is it the environment that we think it is? What's happened since the last time we had that debate? And more importantly, are we still not clear, because I don't think it get crystal clear, but do you still think you know what the agenda is going to be like in a year's time or 2 years' time? Because it's not now. And I can't overestimate that. I think we have to keep looking at that. And then I think the other thing is the real opportunity is that we have got a new potential set of partners and providers around. But everybody, I think we have the responsibility. You have to boil down what your offer is. And I know there are colleagues here today from different networks and different organisations. And I would say really spend time thinking deeply about what is your offer? Does it still fit? You know, are you able to see that it is going to fit within the world that we're moving towards? Not the world as it is now, but what the world will be in some time. We know it, but unless you can tell people what you do, unless you collect data, unless you can actually sell your message, nothing else is going to work. And particularly if we start to work on physical activity in the health arena, it is only data, evidence, and real statistics that will help us. You have to stay focused. I think there's nearly a tendency with so much potential change that you start to think, ooh, well, actually, I've done all that environmental scanning and it has changed, and I now need to move over here. Well, actually, if you move too quickly over there, and we all do that, it's the classic, we're headless chickens. Have confidence in what you are doing, but be prepared to flex if you need to. Not wholesale shift, but just keep thinking, are you in the right place? Are you moving in the right direction? Another key one for me, I mean, I think in partnership work, I learned this a long time ago. There's a guy in rugby league who just said to me, if you're trying to get groups of people to work and you're working in that sort of collaborative way, don't play games. Just don't try to play games, because it just bites you back. It will bite you back. It might not bite you back immediately, but sooner or later, there's payback. And you have to play that straight back. Don't get involved in the politics. If you've got something that's really good, which I think is the last point there, if you know that what you do is good, you don't have to tell people that you're good, you're important, just deliver what you're doing. Exceed what people's expectations and make sure that you're absolutely the best at what you do. And then I want to just talk a little bit about this being a chameleon, because I think we've all done this over the years. But I have shifted absolutely my view of this, at how important it is to develop a different way of describing what you do. And this is where I'm just going to reflect back a little bit on some of the work that we've been doing in Greater Sport and Greater Manchester. And we know that doesn't work anymore. However, we can get passionate and excited about sport, and we can all do that. It doesn't work. And we've known that for a long time, and we've developed ways, haven't we, over the last 10 years, 15 years, of talking about our contribution to a whole set of agendas. But actually, for me, as we move into that, I think, and certainly in my environment, with 10 Met authorities around me in Greater Manchester, the only agenda is the economy. Now, you can break that down into some of these subsets, but actually the decision makers, the leaders of the local authority networks, the only thing they're really interested in is, are they working with organisations, are they funding organisations who will have an impact on the economy? And if that's not the case, then they're not interested. And that's for me. I also, last year, well before the Olympics, and you know, we all get invites now and again, don't you? So you sit in an audience, and I went to a session where David Cameron was going to do a speech on legacy. And I went there in my own sort of naive way, thinking, well, I know what legacy is in the main around sport, isn't it? And it's about getting all this stuff that we're going to do, and that's our job, and that's what we do. It was an invited audience in Loughborough. I got there, and I hardly knew anybody. And you think that you do know quite a lot of people after a while. And he talked, and he hardly mentioned sport. All he talked about was business, jobs, who was getting contracts, tourism, visitor figures. Britain's or England's profile abroad. That's what he was talking about. You have orchestrated questions, don't you, those things, and you're allowed to put a question in. Well, you put a sport question in, and it went to the bottom of the pile. And the only questions that they talked about were people around tourism, business, and the economy. And that's all. And then he left the room. And then he reshuffled his cabinet, and I heard a clip on the telly, and he just said, right, we need to know how any of our government departments, what they are doing to contribute to the economy. It is the number one. And that for us is absolutely that. Followed secondly, in however you talk about this general thing of reducing people's dependence on that public purse and trying to find ways of working with high needs groups. And if you're from local authorities, this is absolutely, I think, where a lot of your thinking is. Trying to move people into areas where they're developing skills that moves them along an employability path. These are the things that the local authorities in Greater Manchester are saying to us all the time. There's something about school readiness that may be just a particular issue in Greater Manchester. But overall, that environment is one where, however passionate I may feel, and however I might say, well, actually, we do this and we do that, the only thing they need and they want from us is, we're interested in you, Greater Sport in Greater Manchester. We'll think of funding you, but you prove to us that you're going to add something. And that environment started for us with something that I've probably found one of the hardest things that as a single CSP we've been through. And it was a really tough time where we consistently, for years, and it's great this because we have this association of the 10 authorities, so not one authority feels they're funding us. We got 184k, it's a lot of money. But the environment was changing. Local authorities were losing 30% on average that year. And of course, they've done the same again, most of them, and will continue to do that. But we were told, if you want to continue to get that level of funding, you have to rethink what you're about. And you have to say to us, if we, AGMA, which is the Association of Greater Manchester Authorities, if we invest 184k in you, what are you going to give us back that helps stimulate the economy at a local level, get the communities thinking about doing things in a different way? What are you going to do to help people, particularly those people in deprived areas with special needs, to move and to gain skills that will allow them at some point to move into a pathway for employment? And we were faced with having to put a bid in to the funding, which in the past was a bit of a tick box, I have to say, over the years. And we had to prove and show that actually what we were about was adding financial value. And a term that I still don't fully understand, and I've got some slides later if you want to get into it, but the gross value added of the money that they gave and invested in us. And doing that, what we had to do was completely rethink the way we sold ourselves as a local county sports partnership and the work of all our partners. And that rethinking was around how do we prove that the work that we do and demonstrate quite clearly and set targets that give them confidence that they will get added value, financial input from what we do. And as I say, I'll talk a little bit about GVA and I'll talk about it. Don't ask me too many questions because I know a guy who knows about it, but I'm not huge at that. However, there are 2 slides at the end of this presentation which gives you a formula. And one thing struck me, I know there's a lot of work going around social return on investment. I'm not sure that one hits the economy agenda, but I think gross value added does. And there's probably other models, and people here probably know more about that. But we had to put a bid in for our 184, and we had to put that in against big GVA-friendly organisations in Greater Manchester. The Halle Orchestra, the big theatres, lots of organisations whose GVA was based on the fact they put massive events on, world-renowned, European-renowned events, and they would bring visitors into Greater Manchester, they would spend money, and that's part of the formula that creates the gross value added. We're a small sports charity. How could we compete against that? Well, we had to put that in, and in the end, these Going back now, these, we say, you can't sell your soul here. We know what we feel we're good at and we're focused at. So these are our current numerical targets. And if you read through there, you can pick out Sportivate, sports makers. What we're doing now, actually, we're training people and we're giving them the skills to move along a pathway. That's a really good one. All the work we do with leaders, coaches, volunteers. And you probably all know, you can get all sorts of calculations that allow you to put a quantifiable value. Moving people from a level 2 qualification to a level 3 qualification is deemed to be worth X amount of future income to them. And these are the things that start to go through. So we didn't lose sight of where we were going, and that's, in a sense, the raw figures that I think are still, meaning we're living within our own values and we're still delivering sport. But then I started to talk, and this is the language I talk to them about now. It's absolutely about that you invest £1 in us and we'll give you £6 back. That's a simple calculation. The large figures there in the population of Greater Manchester is that we directly impact on 1 in 11 people. Indirectly, every coach is working with others, so you could spin that one a little bit more. But we actually achieved this GVA score by analysing what we did and applying the formulas which you can see at the end of this. I'm not going to go through them with you. And we got a GVA score of 256. And I cannot, even with all my contacts, get a view from the people that analysed that as to where we were in the ranking. I don't really know whether that's brilliant or not. It worked for us because actually we got a full grant for 3 years. I also know that's probably our most important figure now, because the GM forecast for this gross annual value added is a 3% increase over the next year on year. That's what Greater Manchester sees itself producing. And our grant has to show that our 256 goes up at least by 3%, otherwise we're going to lose it. So I start off with the sport agenda, but that's actually the most important thing. And I think that's this way of doing things in a different way. Not selling your soul, but just having to talk about it in a different way. And then just finally, because I am hugely optimistic, so that in a way deals with what I think is just a challenge for us all, to be really clear what you're about. And if, as I go through that, and I've got a colleague at the very back who's got a handout, I said that's the best thing that ever happened to Greater Sport. It was really tough. We were planning on all sorts of scenarios of reductions of 30%, 50%. I was absolutely gobsmacked when we got 100% for 3 years. It was just quite, for me, expected. However, it's because of our GVA score, and what it allowed us to do as well was to totally focus back. And what the colleague there is just passing round is, this is the end result of it. It's a two-sider. It's about Greater Sport. If you just scan it, I don't think we could have produced that without going through that real microscopic analysis of what we do and how we presented it. And I'm quite comfortable with what we've written on there. So the last thing I just want to talk about for a couple of minutes is, irrespective of that, and you're making your case and you're landing and you're trying to make sure you're in the right place, this wave, this fantastic spotlight that's on us, this is something that has happened very quickly for us in Greater Manchester. And for those that know, the LOC, the local organising committee for the level 3 county games, is usually it's school-led, usually have a head teacher on there. And when I came back and we've been doing it, we were a pilot, we've been doing it, it's great, lovely events, it's fantastic, I love it. I came back in September and got a call from the head who chairs it immediately. Said, can we sit down and have a chat? Surely we can do something more than just deliver a county event. And I'm thinking, this is great, absolutely, of course we could. And we had a brainstorming at the first LOC meeting of the year. And the LOC still sits there, it's there, its job is to make sure that level 3 competition particularly goes on. But it starts to pick up a much bigger vision. And everybody around that table, because they were excited, and I'm thinking, actually, we can make a difference here. There's enough of us to really do that. That critical mass is there. And we now have an absolute commitment from head teachers, primary, secondary from each of the 10 authorities. We've talked, and when you go through a door on this wave, it seems to me, people are prepared to at least listen. So on the right here, we've got the Chamber of Commerce, because the thing that we think's missing always is the business sector, the way they think, the way they do stuff. So the Chamber of Commerce, absolutely, we'll be a partner in that. We love that. And the media. Because I don't know about you, we struggle. We think we deliver fantastic stuff, but we actually struggle to get media. And this is the media city at Salford. If any of you have been there, it's incredible, just looking at it really, futuristic space and the way it's being used. But you know, they want to get involved, so we're holding a seminar. We've got secondary, primary heads from each of the 10 authorities. We've got business. We've got the media coming, not to have a go at us. We've picked off key individuals. Come on, you can help this. If you really believe in what this is about, which is putting young people at the centre of anything, we want you behind it and we want you to help us. And all that is taking place. And that would not have happened a year ago. The LOC was very tight. It was just doing what it wanted to do. That was its remit. Nobody wanted to expand or extend it, apart from us, I guess. And you can only do what you can do at the time you can do it. So, I wanted to finish on that because I think that's, for us, an example of it. I think we have to ride that wave, keep going because it's there. And however, you know, we might think we are waiting for this, we're waiting for that. Don't let time tick away. Locally and whatever you do, make it work. Boiler offer down, make sure you know what that is. Look for partners because the critical mass is where I think we're going to get stuff done. You must set targets, you must exceed your targets and tell people through what you do rather than what you think you're good at. Just do it and make it very clear that what you're doing and what you're landing on the ground is value. So you sell your success and you don't sell what you believe you are, and aren't we the solution to everything? And I'm not saying everybody in that room thinks that, but you do come across people who think I've got the next idea. Well, it doesn't really work like that. So Richard, I hope that gives some context, and thank you very much for asking me. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Richard. Okay, thank you very much, Richard. That's a really, a good start to the morning, an interesting take on the use of, I'm saying new language, but the world of economic language in our agendas now. I'm sure Jeff has a slightly different perspective on the use of language, but can you welcome Jeff Thompson, MBE, Executive Chairman of Youth Charter.
Thank you, Richard. When the second Richard was talking about a new language, I started reflecting on